Welcome back to Career Conversations. Joining Joe Terry and I as we continue to talk about all things culture. Today, we're going to discuss making hard decisions as you continue to cultivate and grow your culture in the direction that you want to go. To protect it, sometimes you need to make some hard decisions, and they're hard for a reason because they're not easy, right? Obvious, but sounds good here, but when you're in the heat of it, making those hard decisions are critical. So listen to Joe and I talk and share our stories and hopefully get some value out of this. Let me know your thoughts and comments. I think something that doesn't get talked about probably enough because it's uncomfortable, and I love talking about the uncomfortable things, is around culture. How do you hire for it? And then how and when do you fire for it? Nobody likes to talk about that sometimes you just have a bad fit. Sometimes you have, we call it the no prima donna rule here. The person who's really talented, but then treats others poorly, takes shortcuts, and it's all about them, and I have a strict no prima donna rule. Like, you can't do that and be here. We all have egos, but the egos for the company, the team, and the purpose and the mission, not just for ourselves. Ourselves will take care of themselves, ourselves as we go, if we do the right things. And so I think another mistake I see leaders and companies make is when they have that, they won't remove the person, and it's toxic to every other person in the company. Have you had experience around that before?
Yeah, and the one experience that comes to mind is, we had a cultural belief that in a previous company, not here at Partners in Leadership, where we had a cultural belief around serving each other first. Mm-hmm. And when you make a decision, we give you the autonomy to make decisions because we need you to be making decisions. You don't need to ask for permission, but you make a decision. But ensure when you're making that decision, look in your heart, because you talked about it, ego, right?
Yeah.
Am I making this decision for me because I want to optimize Joe Terry and what I'm doing? And it's a better decision for me, or it's going to make me feel good or feed my ego? Or am I making the decision for my teammates because I know they and their families are counting on me to execute at world class?
Right.
And if you make that decision and it ends up being wrong, that's fixable.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Right.
If you make that decision and you make it for you and it's wrong, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And everybody makes mistakes, and you correct that, but you can't let that happen. And so what happened is I had a top salesperson. For 5 years, they were either number 1 or number 3 in the company, producing serious revenue. And honestly, Ron, I was struggling with it. I knew they were violating our cultural beliefs. I knew they were violating them. There was just too much information coming in, and it got to a point to where me and the executive team were like, we got our all hands coming up, and we always start our all hands with our culture and what's it about and why, and how can we look the employees, how can we say this if we're not following it?
Yeah.
And it finally came down to us having to look ourselves in the mirror and say, we got to fire him. And so we fired him, and it was a big deal. But there was two sides of that, Ron. The one side was, it was painful to do that. And I don't like to make examples of people. That's not the point.
Yeah.
But the flip side was, holy crap, they're serious about their culture, the newer people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It drove a message into the company that they're not kidding.
Nothing you could ever say would have a bigger impact than what you did by standing up for your culture to do that. And look, we've had to, not often, but we've had to do that as well. I remember a few years ago and somebody saying, do you think Ron will really let this person go? Like a top producer, and I said, don't think for a second I won't. Now I'll give them every chance to change, So
Right.
don't think for a second I won't. That, it's not more important. It'll torpedo, ultimately it'll be a cancer, and it'll torpedo everything that we're trying to do. And this all sounds sort of brave and holy as you and I are sitting here talking about, but it's a
Right.
hard decision. It also
Oh my
doesn't mean
God.
I didn't hesitate and think about it and understand the consequences of, I'm also trying to grow a company. I've got numbers to hit, team numbers to hit. So, it's the
Well,
right thing to do,
hold
but I don't
there,
sound
hold
too
there.
right. Just like I didn't lose sleep over it. I didn't think about it. Like, you're weighing everything. It is a hard decision to make.
Hold there, because I want to ask you that. I
Yeah.
want some vulnerability here for a
Yeah.
second.
Okay.
So go to that story and
Yeah.
think about that story. So where was your heart? Where was the most difficult part that you were struggling through? Because you knew in the head, like, I got to make that decision.
Yeah.
That decision has to be made.
Yeah.
So where, if you get vulnerable
Yeah.
for a second,
Yeah.
where in your heart was that?
So in the short term, you're thinking this month, this quarter, this year's results, and you're like, this is going to leave a mark. Like, I don't know how we're going to make up for this. And that's what you sort of struggle with, balance the here and now. The long term, it's the right thing to do. And this is probably going to happen at some point. And the longer you let it go, by the way, the chance of it being messier when it happens increases. Right. And so it was balancing that with something you've brought up a couple of times, and I love that you did. And it ultimately comes down to this: thinking about all the other employees in the company who are counting on us to make the right decisions and do the right things, balancing short term and long term, plus the families. You've mentioned it a couple of times on our call. I think about it a lot. My strengths finder, I'm high in belief and responsibility, if people can see that here. When I think about the company and I think about our employees, I think about all the families represented. So instead, now we go from thinking of 500 or 600 employees to what, 2,000, 3,000 or more people, families impacted, relying on us to make the right decision to, keep this going for the long term. And that's what ultimately comes back to. And then I use my team, my executive team, other leaders to level set. And when you have, again, the right culture and you surround yourself with the right people, the answer then becomes easier, because when they all go, this needs to happen, we got your back, and we'll figure out the results part of it. But this can't continue to go on. You go, done. Right. And that's power right there.
Yeah.
That empowers you, and that's a real team, and that's called being united in culture. So that's what it wrestled with. I can remember it going through all those things.
Yeah, I love that. And what you said, just again, these are our conversations that I love.
Yeah.
I just got the chills again when you were saying that, because I'm like, I start thinking about what you're saying, the people and their families, and then you start unpacking that, and they're buying groceries every day, they're making their car payments every day, their house payments, they're sending kids to college, they're taking care of elderly family members. All of those things, Ron, you as the leader of Service Express and what you've built there is supporting those things, right?
Right. Right.
And they're counting on you to make that decision. I love that. I love that.